Today we kōrero with Charlotte Lockhart and Andrew Barnes, co-founders of 4-Day Week Global and the World Wellbeing Movement. They are also behind Perpetual Guardian and Give a Little. They sit on multiple boards, including the Wellbeing Research Centre at Oxford University. They have a winery on Waiheke Island, they own classic boats, and they do amazing philanthropy mahi. Let's get into it. Thank you so much for having us today at your beautiful home. This is so gorgeous and we're very privileged to be here. So thank you very much, Andrew and Charlotte.
Welcome.
Lovely to have you here.
Now we always kick off first with a wellbeing card.
Yep.
So we believe that instead of just saying, hey, how are you, good, and then carrying on with our day, we want to ask some better questions. So feel free to pick one and you guys can both answer it for us. That's all right.
Okay.
Pick a card, any card.
You want to go first?
No.
That face.
Okay, I'll go first. Shall I go first?
Yeah.
What gives my life meaning? Wow, that's a really big question. Obviously, we've got the whole 4-day week thing, which has been incredible and helped us, change the world and the way people think. But I think in the end, what gives us meaning is family. Family is very important to both of us and our kids and the people that have supported us through our lives. And so I think the thing that gives my life true meaning is this man here and our family.
Now I had to read it a couple of times. What one thing have you not done that you really want to do?
Yeah.
Politics, I think, is the answer. It's something that I've decided that I will now never do. But it's something I always intended to do, and I think we drifted close to it on a number of occasions. But given where we are in our lives, actually, I don't know, I could hack it now.
You changed the world.
So I shout at the television, I shout at the phone. I clearly also need to, as a Brit, I'm obviously missing out on somebody handing me lots of new clothes and spectacles. So I'm thinking that maybe I should, but I'm trusting my own dress sense rather than somebody else's.
Missed opportunity, Andrew.
I love that so much.
All right, thank you very much, you two. So we'll kick into it. So Charlotte, tell us about you and your journey so far and where you started. Where did you start? Where are you from?
I started in Howick. I started my life I'm a Howick girl, born and bred Auckland girl, and sort of grew up there in school and then university here in Auckland, and then got married and lived in the Middle East for nearly 10 years, where my elder son was born, and then came back to New Zealand and worked in finance and various sort of areas, and had a second child, and that's nearly 30 years ago now. Wow. And and then, long story short, ended up without my first husband, and then met this charming man. And on that journey, we have had an incredible chance to really change the way the world thinks about work, and with the whole 4-day week. So, in a nutshell, that's kind of my journey that's got us here.
Perfect. That's a hell of a nutshell. Andrew, you started off in Lancashire, so tell us about...
to be strictly accurate, I'm a Cumbrian, I was born north of the wall but south of the border, so almost a perpetually disappointed sports fan. But so I grew up in Lancashire before I went to university in the south, and I was a naval officer initially, and decided that actually that wasn't great. My degree was in archaeology. Yeah. And so obviously the natural progression from archaeology in the Navy was going into the City of London. So I did finance. I was sent to Australia by my bank for a month in 1987 and came back 20 years later, equally with a first wife and a child. But then, came to New Zealand about 12 years ago. Yeah. I met Charlotte, and we have broadly worked together ever since. So, it's not quite the journey I expected to be on. I am, of course, a trained killer. Which is, so...
Just need a naval frigate to help you with it.
Luckily, there's one over there. So if the interview goes badly wrong, just be warned.
Hopefully our naval technology is slightly more developed than 40 years ago, but you never know.
Let me tell you, it's not.
Absolutely frightful. And you got the right accent for that train killer too, I like that.
Yeah.
Now, Charlotte, you were diagnosed with metastatic breast cancer back in 2021, and I imagine that would have just pivoted.
Yeah, it's I got primary cancer back in 2004 and had surgery and chemo and radio and all that sort of thing, and was never given any belief that I wouldn't survive it. The prognosis was very good, so it was a little bit surprising 17 years later to find that it had come back, and for people listening to this, metastatic, stage 4, advanced, they all mean the same thing. It means it's spread and it's incurable. So my first reaction was, I'm going to die. The oncologist had said to me, I said to her, what's the prognosis? She said, well, it could be as little as 2 years. And so your mind just goes into this complete panic. Andrew was in MIQ at the time as well, so he wasn't even able to be with me, so I had a girlfriend come with me. Although having said that, so I mentioned about the first husband, he and I are still very close, and he went through the journey with me the first time, and he offered to come to the appointment with me because he knew Andrew couldn't be with me. So we went back to Waiheke, and I've got a fabulous oncologist, and she'd given me all of the places I should go for information, because you've got to be very careful what you Google. But also a charity here in New Zealand called Sweet Louise, which was set up by a lovely group of people to support people, women and men, because men get breast cancer too, with stage 4 cancer. And I contacted them, and they got straight back in touch with me and helped me calm everything down. But then, you start the treatment, and I have been the most luckiest woman on the face of this planet. So I'm nearly 4 years in now, because people can do maths around that. So it was, and I have been close to 3 years where my scans are not showing any evidence of disease at the moment. Wow. Now, it doesn't mean it's gone away, and so I kind of live with that little thing, but it's not a thundercloud. But it does focus you in on the things that are important, focus you in on making sure that you have time with family and friends, and that we go on some adventures. So one of the things that we looked at when we got the diagnosis might be some of the adventures that we might want to go on. And we'd done the Peking to Paris car rally in 2019, and Andrew said, quite like to do that again. So we did that this year. It kind of just sets up your priorities a little bit more. One of the things I often say is that growing old is a privilege, not a right. Yep. It just sort of focuses you on making sure you're doing the things that matter. Not just to you, but to your family. But as we've been lucky and privileged to have the platform with 4 Day Week, it matters to the world. Yeah.
Amazing. For anybody who may be supporting somebody with this, what would your advice be to somebody who is supporting whānau or friends who are facing the same diagnosis?
Look, there's a really interesting thing around that is around how you support anyone that's got something like this or any other form of thing, is that they are the centre.
Yep.
And everybody else is concentric circles out. So immediate family is the next circle, and then friends, and so you go out. The person in the centre can complain as much as they like to everyone, and everyone has to be nice back in. The next layer out can't complain in. They can complain to complain or get support from out. So the person in the centre is always protected from everyone else's emotions aside from this. However, having said that, one of the things that I'm supremely aware of is that the attention is on me. And it's a hard journey for Andrew. I mean, we've met later in life. We planned to have these decades of fun and enjoy our retirement together, and that uncertainty has, the certainty of that has been taken away. So it's not an easy journey. If you're supporting someone, make sure you're getting the right sort of support as well. Piece of advice to anyone: when someone tells you that they've got a terminal condition, don't say, yeah, but we're all dying. Because that's not, that's, life is a terminal disease, right? But I had, a lot of people say that to me, a surprisingly large number of people, and it's like, and I guess it's just what people nervously first comes into their head. But that's a complaining.
Yeah.
It is certainly a thing that it causes quite a significant reset in life. Hence why, for example, I'm not doing politics. Yeah. There is no way that I want to be sitting, down in Wellington for 3 years, if that is the good 3 years. Yeah. So we planned for this to be, decades. Yeah. But you've always got that thing in the back of your mind that it might not be. Yeah. So seize the day. Yeah. Do the things now that we've always talked about. Yeah. And make the most of it. And
the technology and the drug treatment and everything, there's a whole part. I'm lucky the type of breast cancer that I have is one of the ones there is the most number of treatments for. Yeah. So, I've got plenty of lines where we'll be able to go. But, so you just have to be pleased that you've got the opportunities that you do. Yeah. There are a lot more women out there whose metastatic breast cancer journey is a nightmare. Yeah. Not just health-wise, but in terms of how they can manage their families, their finances.
Yeah. Incredibly tough. Sigh to anyone who says that about life and everyone. One of my things, so I'm about to turn 40 next year, and everyone's like, how you go with that? And I'm like, do you know how grateful I am that I get to be 40? Because I lost friends when we were younger and they didn't get there. And I'm like, I'm every single year grateful, and I realise that people don't get there. And
growing old is a privilege, not a right.
Yeah. Every day. So I know that you guys enjoy your annual key objective planning, so and I love that. How do you plan and prioritise? Because you guys have a lot on, and how do you?
I have.
I'm gonna let you answer that question.
I have a book. I've had books for years, which I start of the year I will write down all of the tasks or projects or ideas that I think are going on. And then as I go through the year and I'm working through these different things, I fill the pages of the book. Usually I get through it by October. So my new book, in fact it is, I've just literally done a new book, is by October. What has changed is that if you'd looked at the books, 2-3 years ago, it would have been project after project after project. Number one now, it says, only do the things that give us joy.
Yes.
And so, the journey for the last few years from a business point of view, the last 10 years, has been, broadly pretty full on. We are always juggling, business, some of the charity stuff that we do, the fact, my family's overseas, my kids are in England. So we're having to juggle a lot of things. So I find having the book has been really helpful. It just keeps me on the straight and narrow. Yeah. But priorities have, totally and utterly changed. And again, it's absolutely as a consequence of Charlotte's diagnosis.
Yeah, so we're busy trying to wind down as much of the things that we are involved with on a day-to-day basis, so we can free up time to be able to just spend more time relaxing. We're not. I'm a very active relaxer. I'm not very good at relaxing. I have ADHD as well, so I feel like I'm all over the place some of the time.
love when people are like, oh, I know. That's
He does.
So what are some of your ways of active relaxing?
Cooking.
Oh yeah.
I love being in the kitchen and doing that. And I'm a little bit naughty with our holidays, so I sort of like to be out doing things like cooking classes and things. But I'm not brilliant with the lying on the beach. I'm trying to be better at just lying on the beach and relaxing.
Yeah, we got the opportunity to go to Rarotonga 15 years ago-ish for my cousin's wedding, and I was only there for 3 days, and I was like, I need to leave. There was not enough. And my husband was like, just chill out. Like, there's a beach. Like, you just have, no, this is not. I need to go and do and see. No, it wasn't my thing at all. Now you are having a massive impact in the world. So I can't wait to hear all about this. But you've got 4-Day Week Global, and you've got the World of Wellbeing movement as well. And these have been recognised all over the show, but in Forbes and in Time magazine. So talk to us first of all. Tell us about 4-Day Week.
Well, it started as a bit of a crazy idea of Andrew's.
Yeah, I was on a plane in 2017 flying back to the UK, and I read a couple of articles in The Economist magazine on productivity. Yep. So we are, by the way, a complete and utter fraud. We're given a sort of position in the wellbeing movement, but that's not what I was trying to add. So I was trying to work out how I could improve productivity in the company. And the research said that people were productive for 2.5 to 3 hours a day. So the rest of it is sort of busyness, fluff, unproductive time. So what I wanted to test was, if I said to people, look, I'll give you a day off a week if you can deliver the same output in 4 days rather than 5. And that means not just changing how you do things, it means changing behaviour to an extent. It's working out what you shouldn't be doing as much as what you should be doing. And that's really all we wanted to test. So when we ran the experiment in Perpetual Guardian in the early half of 2018, I really said to the team, look, I've got this crazy idea, don't know if it's going to work, let's give it a go. And it would...
When he announced it, there was deadly silence, right? You could have heard a pin drop in the room. And then he said, I only want you to work 4 days. So silence. And then, but I'm going to pay you for 5. More silence. And then like this really nervous girl giggle was kind of like from the room. Like, what? What's going on? Exactly.
But the thing that I think was really interesting is the productivity thing was actually one of the easiest things that was dealt with. We in fact, productivity seemed to go up about 25%. Wow. What we hadn't really focused on was the impact it would have on the workforce. So even in our experiments, we were seeing the engagement, empowerment, enrichment scores going up 40%. I mean, to levels the researchers said were the highest they'd ever seen in New Zealand. People were less stressed. It was all of that that we just didn't expect really from the experiment. And that really is what has, I think, morphed into the movement, because you suddenly realise this is not just a fantastic business proposition, but actually the impact on the workforce, the impact on society, environment, the whole thing gets beneficial outcomes from rethinking the way in which we work.
And our PR firm said, oh, that's an interesting idea. We should be able to get an article into the Herald and maybe get you onto breakfast TV with that, right? No, New York Times, Wall Street Journal, The Guardian, BBC, just particularly when we released the research, it just went global. And as the world woke up, and so Andrew had a day where he was supposed to be in a board meeting, and he's literally just doing interviews back to back. Wow. We were handing him phones. And so that was curious, that we'd had that impact. And then we went to the UK, And there had been an Oxford researcher who's set up the World Wellbeing movement subsequently, but he had connected in and said, look, if you're ever in the UK, I'd love to meet you. Now, he's A, a researcher, B, Belgian, and the most excited person on the whole planet. And I'm like, I wasn't expecting that. And he was just super thrilled to meet someone that had actually done some research. So it wasn't just, our company experiences this, it was external research. And he introduced us to Professor Lord Richard Layard, who is effectively the grandfather of wellbeing in the workplace. He writes all the textbooks on it and things like that. So it was that meeting that made me think, we've got something here that people want to connect with. You know, we should perhaps do something with that. And we're in the fortunate position that we had the freedom of our time then, and we had the financial wherewithal to start doing something with it. Whereas a lot of people who have connected in with the idea, you know, they have to work for a living like most people, and so they didn't necessarily have that same freedom. And so we set up 4 Day Week Global without really a plan as to what it would be in its end. And then a man called John Leland from Kickstarter in the US, he said, look, I want to run a campaign, an awareness campaign about this. And we were okay, all right. So we partnered with him on that. And then I said to the team, and we had all sorts of people, Alex Pang, who had written a book on reducing work time, and we had this sort of brains trust. And I said to them, hey guys, we better be careful what we wish for here, because if we create this awareness, then what do we do with it? And so the first pilot program was developed. We had our CEO, Joe O'Connor, who we'd sort of just brought in, and then he coincidentally was going over to do some post-grad study in New York. So it was just all of these serendipitous things that came into a line. So he ran the pilot program, our first pilot program, and then we've ended up running pilot programs in 25 different countries. We've helped hundreds of thousands of people reduce their work time, thousands and thousands of companies. And there's now legislative change proposed in the UK, Poland, the US. There's legislation that is being proposed. And the UAE.
It goes on and on.
It goes on and on.
Japan, bizarrely, India has got a version of it.
Yeah.
Belgium, Lithuania, Romania. Obviously, you know, the UK is going to have this coming in fairly shortly. Not quite the model, but it doesn't really matter. What we've found is that from a crazy idea in 2018, and everybody thought we were mad, to mainstream in 6 years. So it's been, you know, debated at Davos on, I think, 3 occasions. It's the European equivalent of Davos and the European Community. They've had a huge debate over it. It's been debated, obviously, in Congress, in the House of Parliament. One place it hasn't been really debated, if I'm being brutally honest, is right here.
Yeah, exactly. The Australians had their select committee for working care said they felt that a pilot program along we have a principle called 100-80-100, 100% pay, 80% time, 100% productivity, and they felt that a pilot program in Australia along those principles should be supported. So when you know, so that hasn't happened yet, but the fact that people are talking about it, so we're kind of thinking that we've actually got a little bit to job done. You know, there's so many other people out there now helping and coaching and supporting organisations. We've got the Big Four all looking at it now, and in terms of how they create programs in their communities for their own staff, but then also in the countries where their offices are. So we kind of feel like, you know, the snowball is really going down the hill now.
I'm looking at that picture on your wall, just like that ripple effect, you
Yes,
know, like
yes,
where you've got
yeah.
that sort of point of impact, and then just all those things that are just coming from it, and hopefully will just continue to expand.
Well, we think the global audience now is somewhere over 5.5 billion people. So we've spoken, presented, or had pilot programs running in something like 115 countries now. So what I think this says is, and this is whether or not you believe in it, is that the way we work today isn't fit for purpose. It's causing all sorts of issues. Now, most of the issues are driven by people not having time. That is the amount of time that we put our kids into care because we haven't got time to look at them. We haven't got time to cook, so we take those takeaways. And therefore we have an obesity issue. If you start to rethink work and basically say that it is output, not time, that's important, it absolutely frees you up to rethink a whole lot of things. After all, Maynard Keynes in the 30s thought we would be only working 15 hours a week at this point in time. Now, actually, I think he's right. If you go back to our original premise of people being only productive for 3 hours a day, I think with the improvements of technology and the like, that is what we only have to do. The rest of what we do is filler because, you know, we are creatures of the workplace improvements in the 19th century. You know, the 12-hour day, the 10-hour day, the 7-day, 6-day, 5-day week, gradually dropping to 8 hours, largely a Christian principle if you think, you know, 8 of sleep, 8 of work, 8 of play, and we've just stopped dead. So 100 years ago we started this, and now we're saying, you know what, the pinnacle of human achievement is the 8-hour day.
40 hours,
But it's not 40 hours though. This is the problem, right? The way, you know, with the way where technology has crept in, for a lot of people, their workday doesn't stop start when they enter the workplace and stop when they leave it. I'm a Gen X, Andrew's a boomer, and it's our generations that have created that. We did this. We overvalued work, you know, through the 80s, 90s, and into the new millennium. And we created that ethos of you have no value unless you're working really hard and you're working long hours. That, you know, I remember having a conversation with someone, and I had small children at the time, and she was asking if I was going to come to an event that they were hosting. It was a work thing on a Thursday night. I said, no, I'm going home because I've worked 70 hours already. You know, so at some point you've got to not value that as being a good thing. And the young people are, you know, you hear about people say, oh, the young ones these days, they just don't want to work very hard. And I'm like, good. Because they're our children. Right, the millennials and the Zs, they're our children, and they've watched us overvalue work over our health, over our communities, over over pretty much everything, including over them.
It's an interesting question because I think that this whole cult of overwork grew up. I don't actually think that the average individual believes in it. And the reason I say that is we ask a question when we run our trials. At the end of the trial, we say, right, okay, how much more will we have to pay you to go back to working 5 days a week? And about 15% will say, you can't. There is no amount of money that will get us back to 5 days. About another 15% are saying, look, I think it's about 75% more. And so on through them. So what that says is that people value the additional time off that you give them. And let's be clear, it's not always a Friday, it's not always a Monday. And in fact, you know, working parents in our organisation work 5 days a week, but compressed hours. You know, they do the school run, do the pickup. So if you give people the time off that is important to them, they value it far more than the time we pay them to, as you always say, to borrow them from their lives. That's exactly the point.
And so to a certain extent, for me now, it's like, well, what is the society that we want? The breakdown of that this volume of work has meant that we're no longer engaged in our communities. We're not really doing sport in the way we should and engaging with that. Religion is dying away because I just don't have time for that. But we're also not, as Andrew said, we're not caring for our children ourselves. We're delegating that. And, what if you had a world where the parents could drop off and pick up their children? One parent drop off, one parent drop off, pick up. So therefore you're creating a world where the children are being cared for by their primary caregivers, but also, and those people are doing it without any fear of guilt. And not feeling not feeling like they should be at work, and not feeling rushed. So there's a pace that comes with that. And then what is the difference to that family's finances by not paying for before and after school care?
I always remember that when we first did it, we had a chap who was a grandfather, and he was based down in Dunedin office, and he would take 2 afternoons off a week. And what he'd do is he'd walk home at lunchtime. So he got himself a little bit fit. I was walking up. Then his granddaughter would come out, and they would do grandfather stuff and have tea together 2 afternoons a week. And when he talked about it, he cried. Because we'd given him something that he never thought he was going to be able to have. Now that, I think, it was those sort of stories.
There were so many of them.
You
used to get emails that where you'd just be bawling your eyes out because people were just telling stories about how impactful the opportunity to be able to have time to be.
Now, and of course, as a hard-nosed and pretty hard businessman like I am. You then rapidly recognise that the biggest incentive is not having, a gym membership, or maybe let's have a mission statement on the wall that we can all coalesce around. The thing that actually motivated people is, one, the organisation giving a damn about what was happening outside, but also giving them the chance to be the best they can be in the office and the best they can be at home. And the minute you did that, that was the motivator. So when we look at our trials all around the world, and this includes trials in places as diverse as Brazil or South Africa, so we're not just talking about, first world countries. We're not just talking, by the way, about office-based. There's manufacturing, there's health, there's logistics, there's even a police force doing it. That what we see is, without exception, performance improves and the organisations become stronger. They're able to attract and retain better talent. It is possibly the most sensible and rational business decision you could ever make. And your biggest risk, frankly, is not doing it. Your biggest risk is your biggest competitor does it first.
And the interesting thing is, it's easy to see why having more time would make me feel better. The well-being concept is quite easy to see, but what our pilot programs show is it's actually the right business decision. Productivity goes up, profitability goes up. Things like absenteeism. In our UK pilot, absenteeism went down by 65%.
Wow.
Now, so if there's any HR people are listening to this, you'll know what your absenteeism costs, the dollar, the dollar cost into your business of things like that. So, and Andrew was talking about what happened with the Perpetual Guardian pilot, but we find that universally is that the team engagement scores just go through the roof. And so therefore, instead of it being the bosses and the people, you create this partnership, because what you've said to them is, hey guys, if we can make the business more productive, you can go home, but we won't drop your pay. And so this is the thing. It's about actually, if you just say to, if you get, I'm working with an organisation at the moment, and that's exactly what they've done. Come on, guys, we need to be more productive. And all people hear is there are layoffs coming. You don't trust me. You want me to do more with less, and you make it a really unsafe workplace. But when you say, guys, if we can find ways to make this more productive, you can have this benefit. You can go home and spend that time with whatever, then people just roll their sleeves up. They go, where can I start? And they find ways to do that within their job roles that were known, and find ways to do it within their job role that they didn't know either.
Incredible.
So the human is incredibly adaptable when given the right incentives.
Yeah. We do a lot of work with Tahi with students. And again, one of the things we often talk to them about is everything was created by humans. So even your school day timing from this time to this time, or the subjects you study, or the time we were at work, everything was created by humans. Therefore, you guys can challenge these things and go, actually, we want a different story to come out of this, and we want to look at it differently. And once you just tell them that, I mean, we all know it, but at the same time, it's just that realization to go, oh yeah, actually, why are we doing it that way? Or can I ask a question? So with that in mind, if you imagine there are some people listening to this right now who are going, my boss will never go for this, and they're never going to listen to me when I pitch this, what would be some advice you'd give to some of those employees who believe this would be so amazing?
I think what you've got to do is you've got to change the debate away from just well-being.
Yeah.
I mean, that's almost the problem. Work-life balance, right? Now, work-life balance doesn't say anything about productivity. It just says, I am balancing it for me.
Yeah.
Whereas the boss, the employer, the shareholder, the financiers are all going to be sitting there saying, actually, the bottom line counts. So this is not about just work-life balance. It is about how do I rethink the organisation to deliver the same, actually the results, as we've said, say more, with actually the same workforce. And then all the other matrices are all improved as well. Now, this is just a sensible, rational business experiment, which is why also we say to companies, just try it.
Yeah.
If it's wrong, you can come and to us later on and say, told you so, completely stupid, why did we even think? But actually, if you try it,
just run a pilot.
Just run a pilot and see what happens.
You're actually, all you're convincing your boss to do is run a pilot. But, you know, and you have to find out from your boss what motivates them.
Yeah.
You know, it depends on the organisation. I mean, like a publicly listed company is going to have, you know, that's going to all be about the bottom line, right? But they also have all of this ESG reporting that they have to do as well. So you just got to find out what those triggers are, and the person who's most likely to get in the way actually is the CFO. Yeah. The person that runs the money, and so and that's why our research is available online, and it gives people the opportunity to actually just look at those numbers, see what they think, what the difference is, and then go, well, okay, so if we applied that to our business, if we had similar results in our business, what would we be looking to see?
It is a thing that you always find, and you know, I remember sitting in a politician's office in Wellington doing a talk about the 4-day week. And a chap came in and he said, what are you here for? And I said, well, you know, I'm going to talk about the 4-day week. The reaction is almost always the same. So I stare off, look at you, stare off into the middle distance, and then try and come up with an industry that proves it won't work. Yeah. So in this case, the guy goes, well, it wouldn't work in dairy. I said, well, why not? He said, well, cows need milking twice a day. Now, if you think about it, subsequent to that conversation, a New Zealand company called Halter has developed a piece of technology that means you can milk your cows from your living room. Yeah. So actually, it does work in dairy, right? Yeah. You can do it. Yeah. It is purely rethinking. Yeah. So when someone says it would not work in my business, they are saying that there is no improvement possible at all in their organisation. It's fantastic. They've reached the pinnacle of human achievement. There is nothing else that you could do better. And that is all about time. It's not about output. It's not about productivity. It's not about moving the levers on things like, can you attract, retain good quality staff? Nothing about absenteeism. None of that. It is just purely assuming that every hour, every minute, every second of a working week is equally as productive as the other. And in fact, way in the early days, we were talking to a group in the UK who were interested in doing this, and then in the end they overthought it. They found, they researched it, and they came up with the earth-shattering conclusion that Friday afternoons were the least productive time in the week.
No way.
Who'd have thought?
But they also didn't do it because we can't just give everybody Friday afternoons off. And they were just they had this closed-minded approach to it. And they said no to even running. They'd been into the media saying they were looking at and everything. So they were kind of committed on this journey, but they couldn't get themselves across the line to just run a pilot, to find the way to make it work. Yeah. And the interesting thing about this is that they're a research funder. And I'm thinking, you're missing the basic third form science concept of having a theory, planning an experiment, running that experiment, and seeing what your conclusions are. It's basic third form science. And they just missed that. And that's what we're just saying to people. You have a theory that you can improve productivity in your business. So you're going to design an experiment, a pilot program that will let you test how you might make that work in your business. And then you're going to run that experiment. And then at the end of it, you're going to see how did it work. And you're going to make a decision at the end of it as to whether you're going to continue, whether you're going to stop, or whether you're going to continue to pilot, which a number of companies do, especially with companies that are complex. If you've got a sales and manufacturing and logistics and office space stuff, and so there are various different ways where reducing work time and improving productivity needs to be rolled out. And so organisations like that tend to pilot for longer.
But and we do see, therefore, that it is the preconceived idea that it won't work. So there's a council in the UK, South Cambridgeshire Council, who have implemented it. The vitriol that was poured on them was quite extraordinary. However, they saved several £1 million in terms of their costs. They hit 17 out of 19 benchmarks. They exceeded performance and improved on 17 out of 19, and the other two remained the same. And yet, you would have thought the world was coming to an end when they announced that they were going to do it.
She's had a terrible time in the media because, of course, you get...
up until change of government.
It has slowed down now. So, it is an interesting concept that... the reality is, reduced work time is coming. If you want to leave it to the last minute to do it, but eventually the world will reduce down to a 32-hour work week. My fear with AI is, of course, is that AI is just, everybody goes, what about AI? It's literally just the latest iteration of human invention into the workplace. We've had machinery and computers and the internet and everything. There's been all these things that have given us technology boosts so that we can be more productive. And my fear is that we will bring in AI and still work as many hours. And what we really should be looking at is what is the society that we really want to be aiming for. And I talk about the young ones. And the fact that they don't want to work the same hours that we do because they've watched us. They want valuable work, right? They want work that matters. They want to be part of something that is valuable and does great things, but they just don't want to work 60, 70-hour weeks. They just don't want to have that because they want to be in their communities. They want to be in their families. And one of the things that I often say is that we should want that for them because they are the parents of our grandchildren. And so for me, I'm looking at what's the world I want my grandchildren to grow up in. And what we really should be looking at is what is the society that we really want to be aiming for. And what we really should be looking at is what is the society that we really want to be aiming for. And what we really should be looking at is what is the society that we really want to be aiming for. And what we really should be looking at is what is the society that we really want to be aiming for. And what we really should be looking at is what is the society that we really want to be aiming for. And what we really should be looking at is what is the society that we really want to be aiming for. And what we really should be looking at is what is the society that we really want to be aiming for. And what we really should be looking at is what is the society that we really want to be aiming for. And what we really should be looking at is what is the society that we really want to be aiming for. And what we really should be looking at is what is the society that we really want to be aiming for. And what we really should be looking at is what is the society that we really want to be aiming for. And what we really should be looking at is what is the society that we really want to be aiming for. And what we really should be looking at is what is the society that we And it's not a world where they don't know their parents.
Yeah, their parents are present. That's what we want.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
as you said earlier, I loved your quote about that we're borrowing people from their lives.
Yes.
Like being really mindful of that as we do these pilots or start thinking about what we're going to test in there and thinking generationally forward, going, what do we
And
want?
we're not saying work's not important. There's actually one of our researchers at Cambridge, he actually did a piece of research a number of years ago about the amount of work that we need to be fulfilled. And it's about, on average, 20 hours a week. And so we as part of human endeavour, we work and being productive and doing stuff suits us. Yeah. So no one's saying stop working. Yeah. We're just saying make it appropriate.
Yeah. Fit for purpose.
Yeah.
Fit for future.
Yeah.
Tell us about the World of Wellbeing movement.
Right. Well, so this came out of the Oxford University, the researcher that we're associated, Jan Emanuel Deneve, he set up the Wellbeing Research Centre at Oxford, and through that it became clear that, a bit like us with the 4-day week, that there needed to be a structure that large companies could come in and support, that allowed us to do simple things like actually defining what well-being is.
Yeah.
So the ESG statistics that these companies have to report on are fairly vague,
yeah.
and was actually about creating a world where we are really concentrating on what does that practically look like. And it's not just having a well-being program in your business. It's not just about having an EAP program. Yeah. It's actually about what does that look like. And one of the great pieces of informal research that Jan has done is he's actually benchmarked the companies that perform well for well-being on the S&P 500. Wow. And the companies that excel in the S&P 500 all have great well-being statistics.
Who'd have thought that having a healthier, happier, more motivated workforce would lead to higher productivity?
Yeah,
I mean,
exactly.
Going out on the limb.
Exactly.
Those Friday folk that discovered
that. So the interesting thing is that well-being pays.
Yes.
You know, and yes, there's a cost, but it actually pays, and that's. His research is quite fascinating. He has been, and he continues it on. And so it's one of those sort of interesting things. I think a lot of business owners and business leaders, they just don't know where to start.
Yeah.
So our program, the great thing about it is, while the end goal is to ensure that people get to have that time off, our program is about helping them on a journey to get there. So, I mean, I always have business leaders saying, well, I just want my people to get back to the office. I'm just trying to work out what my actual workload looks like. And I said, well, but you could use our program to define that. Yeah. Because what you're saying to your people is, we need these outcomes. And your people are helping you design how you're going to get them.
It's one of these things you have when you're talking to a lot of business leaders. The second question, after them trying to think of the industry, is they'll go, but how do you measure productivity? And you go, gotcha. Because what you're saying is you're using time as a surrogate for productivity. You're not focusing on productivity. Personally, I don't pay my staff just to sit in the office. It's the output that's important. But I think that we use time as a surrogate for it. And as a consequence, we're not actually measuring the thing that we should be measuring. And so this is where I think the research that Jan is doing is an interesting crossover. Because ultimately, we all keep coming back to, how does the entity perform as a consequence of having these benefits? And what you're seeing is that the outcomes improve. And that's very important. And it's important, as you said earlier, how do you persuade your boss to do it? Well, why do you want your company to be rubbish?
Well, and when people say sort of, how do you measure productivity, I say to them, well, what are you measuring now? I mean, you already have things that you measure in your business that define the success of your business. And some of it is measuring people's time, but some of it's just what's your bottom line. There are things, and so while when people go through our pilot programs, they they might redefine some productivity or put some additional measurements in, but we often say to people, don't put too much in, don't make it complicated for yourself, right? Yeah. Keep it simple. Try not to have a whole pile of new things that you have to work out and find time to measure all the time. Plus also, you want to have historical data. Yeah. So you want to be able to go, well, compared with last year, this is what this year has been. So some of it's not actually about reinventing the world. People go, well, what do you do if someone's not performing? I'm like, well, what do you do with people now when they're not performing?
It's not the hardest thing. Don't overthink it. It's probably
just go for
it and try it.
It's actually, as you often say, it's easier than you think. Yeah. And certainly, there's a woman who has 4 restaurants in Spain and a number of hospitality businesses. And she does a 4-day week. And she said at the conference in Valencia a couple of years ago, she said, Andrew Barnes always says it's easier than you think. And she said, I couldn't reinforce that more. Wow. Because it's just about thinking differently. You know? And Henry Ford is credited with bringing in the 5-day week. And he's also credited with saying whether you think you can or whether you think you can't, you're right. And that's the thing, the difference between a business leader doing some form of reduced hours working and a business leader not is the first business leader thinks he can.
The biggest roadblock for our experiment of Perpetual Guardian was actually my leadership team. I was going, well, I've got to do it. I'm the shareholder. I fixed the private capital part of it because I announced it on national television, and they weren't game enough.
We're not taking the 4-day week off the company.
And the phone call started.
But the leadership team often it's very challenging because you are effectively conceding things to the workforce. You're saying, you tell me, and we pick people to be managers, leaders. Fundamentally because you're problem solvers, because you can come up with a solution. Actually, what this is a recognition is that you can't actually. And in fact, the people who do the job know most of the roadblocks or the problems. And often they're so small that you wouldn't normally get to focus on it. But the minute that issue is standing between someone and their afternoon off, it gets addressed and it gets sorted out. So, it is what it is. I mean, we are at the point now where we think that after 4 or 5 years of research all around the world, the evidence is overwhelming that actually it sort of works. And, that's almost job done, really, I think, in a way.
And, and we can sit back and go, we did that. We did that, and but we were. I have to acknowledge all of the hard work that our team have put into creating. I mean, we have not done it on our own. We had great partners in the beginning. I have to say that a big partner of getting this journey, because as soon as it became clear it was a media storm, our PR firm were amazing and were really key partners. Alexander PR. Really were key partners in helping us getting it going and what that conversation looks like. And so, it's very satisfying.
You don't get many chances to change the world.
No.
It just happened to have been ours.
Taking it with 2 hands. We spoke with Alice Soper. I don't know if you know Alice Soper, but she speaks from a sports point of view of creating on-ramps for adults later in life if they want to try volleyball or something they haven't done it for, one of those on-ramps. And as you guys are talking, that's what you're doing with all of your work and the conversations and the examples. You're creating on-ramps for all these different businesses and organisations and individuals to find a path into it, because none of them are going to be the same, and they will all have a challenge, and they'll all look up and try and find their reason why they can't. But you are
and that's why running the pilot programs, and we have an online community and things. So actually everybody can learn from each other. We've just created this ecosystem of people just learning from each other, because as much as my business might be different from your business, no business is unique. And so someone else will have had a similar problem to what you're experiencing or anticipated you might experience. And so someone else can give you well, in my business I did this, and you go, I quite like that idea. I'm going to try that.
So speaking of our leaders and potentially being blockers in some different things, what's influenced your leadership style and how do you lead your teams that you've worked with?
Look, I was lucky enough to be in the Navy years ago. And the thing is, in business, we teach how to manage, we don't teach how to lead. Mm-hmm. So nobody at all goes over the top for a flag or a mission statement.
Yep.
You know? And you learn that very quickly in the military. You have to motivate, young men and women to do almost the unthinkable.
Yeah.
And they don't do it for the things that you think that we do. They do it quite simply for the person on their left and the person on their right. And so my leadership philosophy has always been based around trying to do that, to create that sense of community. And you can see how the 4-day week fits into that, because I can only have my day off if you're not wasting my time and you're working to support me, and vice versa. And I think the other thing is, and again it comes from the military, it's about communication. All too often we talk at, not talk with. And so how you communicate the message, how you, again, get that sense of ownership in an organisation. Bizarrely, arguably the best leadership schools anywhere in the world in the military, because what happens in that organisation is not what we think. We think of it all as command and control, but it's not. You have, squad leaders, junior leaders, you have your warrant officers, all of these people going all the way down who have to understand the message, understand the common goal, understand their role in that, and understand what happens if the bridge gets blown up and who's going to be doing it next. And or you lose your command and control center. So what we're trying to do, I think, or I'm trying to do is create that sort of environment.
Well, I love that.
And I think for me, for me, it really is about communication. It's about understanding the human experience. So making sure that our people, when they come to me with a problem, whether I agree with the problem or not, or agree that it's even a problem, that's their reality. Yep. And so you've got to make sure that you're listening to them so they feel heard, and then you're part of a solution or helping them find the solution themselves. Is ideal if they can do it themselves. And so that sort of again plays out into the whole 4-day week space. We did a pilot for a large media organisation in the UK, or for a division of it, and the leader was saying it was a really interesting experience actually, but one of the things she would say was that she did her job on the train to work and the train home, because during the day everybody was coming to her with problems and things, and she had an open door or open desk, because open plan office, open desk policy, and so she just had constantly being disturbed all day. And when they went on with this program and people took responsibility were empowered about their productivity and took responsibility for it, they stopped coming to her every 5 minutes. And so, and some of it's a little bit like parenting, really. It's like empower your children to be able to make decisions for themselves and put their own shoes on. And so then she found she was getting a lot more of her job done at work. And so, so it's those sort of things that, why would I do that in my business? Would you like to just stop working late nights because you can get more done at work? Pretty much a good job. There's not a business owner out there that's not working nights and things, and that could probably do with stopping doing that and being present for their families and their...
I love the examples you're giving right throughout this interview as well, because you've come at this from all these different angles. So now you've shared what it's like, because business owner, that's exactly what it's like. You sit on the couch at night, or my husband's in the office typing till 2 o'clock in the morning doing invoicing and stuff, there are different and better ways that we can do that, and it's just keeping on sharing stories as well, which will be great with your forums. So of all you've done so far, and achieved, what are you most proud of and what are you most thankful for?
Well, I think I'm certainly most proud of the 4-day week. That has been a huge, a huge privilege to have been able to lead around the world. And I'm actually just most grateful for the opportunity to do it, and that largely comes down to having met you. So if I look at the number of it, I'm hugely grateful.
Paul, me?
Well, I mean, clearly the 4-day week is a thing. I think, in many ways, coming to New Zealand though was for me was quite a seminal moment. Not least because I met Charlotte. But if I look back, a lot of my career had been close but no banana. I'd done things that were, in many ways, were quite impressive. But actually, I always felt there was a bit of unfinished business.
Well, you've been largely doing things for other people.
Yeah, and so this is coming to New Zealand, building what became Perpetual Guardian, creating things like 4-day week, and actually, as a consequence, being able to use both the business, the movement, the stuff that we do because of the nature of the work that Perpetual Guardian does. We were actually able to change whole aspects of our world for the better. Now, 4-day week is the biggest, but actually there's lots of things that come out of the work that Perpetual Guardian does that mean that we are trying to make New Zealand better on a daily basis and supporting people who are doing fantastic work. And that actually is extremely satisfying. And I think you've got to look at it in a holistic sense, because we couldn't have done 4-day week without Perpetual Guardian in a way. And so
well, we think of some of the successes at Perpetual Guardian. So, for example, there was 100 or so military personnel going to Afghanistan at some point, and so we found out about that. It was in the press, and Andrew said, well, they can't go to, have they got wills? So we contacted the military and said, look, can we give these guys free wills, or guys and girls, can we give them free wills before they take off to fight for freedom? And they went, oh, that's very generous. And then they turn around and goes, actually, we can't tell you who they are. And so we went, okay, well, what if we just gave all of the military free wills? And, because you're an ex-military man. And so we'll do that for the military, and then those people that can just be part of the masses that do it. And yes, to this day, we still provide free wills to the military, and it's just part of the important things. And you always worked on the basis that if someone was going to put their life on the line for New Zealand and for the things New Zealand stands for, then the very least we could do is
make sure their family are protected.
Make sure their family are protected. And, so, everyone in the military gets a life insurance policy. So in the very least, if they happen to pass away early, that life insurance policy falls within an estate. So by just merely giving them that, they need to have a will. So... and making people aware of that. I think that's a large part of the work we've done with Perpetual Guardian, is actually making people aware of the importance of some of these things and keeping themselves safe and how you keep your family safe.
Because otherwise, let's face it, running a trust company is not the most exciting business.
No.
You don't wake up in the morning and go, you know what, I've thought about it, I want to work for a trust company.
Yeah, well, that was certainly before we did 4-day week, right? Now, of course, people go, that's a funky company, let's go work for them. Yeah. But it was not career aspirational before 4-day week, that's for sure.
So priceless.
But you often also talk about the fact that you love dull businesses.
I do. I love dull businesses.
Because nothing like buying nice, stable, dull businesses.
But that's what your vision is similar to ours. So we want to see people, we talk about Aotearoa, where our reach is, but we want people to thrive and live well every single day. So, exactly what you were speaking about. What does that look like for each individual, and how do we how do we keep pushing that mission in a way that works?
Well, and one of the big barriers to that, of course, is for people is the number of hours they have to work.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
To feed the family.
Yeah. And, we'll come back to sports, but, with drama and all these different things that happen after school, a lot of children aren't doing it, or a lot of teams are tipping over because they don't have one parent that can turn up to be the coach.
Exactly
right. So tell us Sebastian's cricket story.
Oh, yeah, it's really interesting, because my son grows up he's in England, and he plays cricket. He's not great, right? But he plays cricket. He played cricket for this side at Blackheath, which was near Guildford. Before the pandemic, I used to take him there, and there'd be about 11, 12 kids, playing a bit of cricket.
A few parents, mostly mothers.
And then, just towards the end, when obviously the UK had lifted its COVID restrictions, cricket was on. I said, well, I'll take him back to Blackheath. And I got this email that said, if you're coming at 5 o'clock, park by the church. If you're coming at 6 o'clock, you park in the meadow by the pub. If you're coming at 7 o'clock, you need to be in the car park behind the back of the cricket pavilion. And if you're coming after that, then you just have to park on the outfield. And I'm thinking, it's a bit rich, there's only 11 parents. About 200 kids showed up. Now, apparently, by the way, right the way across our part of England, the same thing was playing out, because suddenly mum or dad was not at work, and they were capable, with the working from home movement as well as anything, of going and taking their kids to cricket. So suddenly, it's not just the children at cricket, you've got the parents at cricket, you've got the siblings there.
Oh, there's a barbecue and everything.
There's a barbecue running, the bars.
There's a bar.
And so part of that is, literally the organisation remains exactly the same. The opportunity is exactly the same. The thing that made it different was time. And, as a consequence, Australia are going to get themselves whooped for years by England in the Ashes, because suddenly there are a pile of kids playing cricket. Yeah. So there's goods that came out of COVID, right? Yeah.
More pathways. Is there any advice that either of you have received that really had a great impact on your life? Or have you given any, other than work 4 days or / listen to your people?
It's not so much advice, but it's and there is a bit of debate as to whether it was ever really said. But for me, it's that the ostensible Churchill quote, success is not fun, failure is not fatal, it's the courage to continue that counts. And if I look back at, my career, my life, there have been occasions, literally, before I came to New Zealand, I was pretty well broke. Yeah. I was trying to work out how to pay the mortgage, how to put food on the kids' table, and it would have been so easy to give up. It's one of those times where you literally sat there and go, I have got life insurance, I'm probably worth more dead than alive, and so, is that the solution? Now, it's just keeping going that is the issue. And so I think more than anything else for me, I would say it's that.
I think for me it's the Henry Ford, whether you think you can or whether you think you can't. And the first time I came across that, I had a Mike Pero mortgages franchise, and it was a line that Mike used to use a lot, so thank you, Mike. He also used to say, the harder I work, the luckier I get. And so it's kind of interesting around finding that balance. And there's another line in that vein which says that, success just looks like, it is achievable for all, it's just that not everybody does it because it's dressed in overalls and looks like hard work. But actually, when you say productive work and you look at it, and it's about, with any of these things, it's about having a deliberateness about, the way that you approach life. And that's not always easy when you don't feel like you've got any control. Yeah. But some of it just comes down to making your bed in the morning. Yep. Just making sure you put some discipline around getting some exercise, making sure that you choose to eat better. Yeah. So there are simple things that you can do to bring things into your life that give you an amount of control over how good you are as a human, like just as a human machine, right? Good food, good sleep, so there are disciplines that we can put in place that allow you to be a little bit deliberate about the bit that you can control. And I think that, and depending on how much control you do have over what other people's experiences are, then you've got to take that responsibility really seriously. So one of the things that, I talked about was that we had the opportunity to take the 4-day week thing to the next level. But I think we had a duty to do it as well, because we were in this fortunate position of having financial security and the time, then we were the right people and we had a duty to do it. And so sometimes it's about understanding that the blessings that you do have come with a responsibility to ensure that people get a chance to have a more blessed life themselves.
So, and Charlotte's way more of the 21st century than I am. I'm still rapidly stuck in the 20th.
18th.
But in my book, I always have quotes at the front of the book. Now, one of them is the Churchill quote, but the other one is the final line from Ulysses, which is on the. I'm a huge Antarctic nut, right? So, on the cross above Discovery Hut in Antarctica, commemorating Scott, the words to strive, to seek, to find, and not to yield. I think that's me in a nutshell.
Yeah. And it's quite interesting because we've been fortunate to be able to live this quite big life, and I'm very aware that everybody else doesn't get to change the world. You don't need a big life to make a difference, because we're on holiday in Oman and we had this absolutely lovely tour guide showing us around and talking about his life and what things were. And one of the things he said was that so in his community, this is his house, he's responsible for the 4 families in front of him, behind them, to the east and to the west. And it was 7 families. 7. And so it's about that, just, you were responsible for your community, you're responsible for those. So if there's one thing that you can do is just go knock on the door of the people next door and get to know your neighbours. Try and be the community. Because you can impact someone more by knowing them and them knowing you and being able to rely upon each other when something doesn't go quite right in a day, and being able to be there for each other is what makes a difference. So it's not just about having time for our children or anything like that. It's about actually how can we have time for each other. And then if we decide as a society that we want to be more connected, then it's that's the why we should reduce work time. The how is flipping heck. There's so much information about it now. The how is really the easy bit. But you've got to buy into the why.
And one of our whys is obviously people having resilient shock absorbers. So if those potholes come or challenges come along, that they can go, okay, I know that I'm in a hole, but there are ways and means, and then I can start doing the things I can control: eat well, sleep well. Who do I reach out to have a conversation with if I'm not okay, so that we can deal with those ebbs and flows a hell of a lot better. And if they have the time to have put into their community and into themselves with our 4-day weeks, then that's so massive, you guys, so massive. So last question from me for the day before we move into our final one is around communities. So we mahi with a lot of different community organisations out there, and I'm sure you guys do as well, both just through the work you do, but also through your philanthropic endeavours. And times are really tough out there, and a lot of community organisations are really struggling. So any final words of advice to them?
Look, this is really quite, we're having this debate all the time, because obviously we have Perpetual Guardian, which is arguably the top end of town. We also give a little. So that's community funding. What we're seeing is universally almost every charity is seeing material drops in the money that they can raise, and sometimes 50% down on what they would historically have done, whilst at the same time we have more demand on
the need is greater.
Yeah, the need is much greater. So we've got this it's almost a vortex at the moment in terms
and a government that can't spend money.
Yeah, and I think that's the real challenge that we face. And so the advice I give to both the boards that are the charitable boards I sit on is that the traditional model has often been, let's go and tap on the shoulder of a very small number of wealthy people, and they really have got bruised shoulders now. In fact, in some instances, they actually themselves are under pressure in their businesses, in the personal circumstances, interest rates being where they are. And if you haven't democratized your giving, you've got a problem. Because, once upon a time you could send somebody out and rattle a bucket. Yeah. And guess what? Nobody's got any coins. Yeah. Or you would do a mail shot, and really nobody bothers with that anymore. And you used to do plunket knocking on the doors and they're not home because everybody's working.
When my boys were young, I literally the plunket campaign was knocking on doors during the week, and people would be home and would give me money.
So you've really got to start to rethink, the method of the method of giving. Charitable giving has changed, and whilst on the one side give a little is a great thing, on the other hand it is disintermediating the charity, because what it's doing effectively is saying, actually, I can give to you. You've got a need, I can give straight to you. I don't need to go through this organisation. Now, that is a good thing, but it actually means for those people who haven't got that particular heart-tugging story, that just have an ongoing need. I don't quite, not going to quite give for that, right? So it's a real problem now. And so actually diversification of funding, whether it be, a bequest program, whether it be, the big donors, whether it be Give a Little or other programs, you need to have a far more rounded approach now than you've ever had before, because we keep making charities at a rare old rate of knots. I think there are 30,000 charities in New Zealand. We are over-charited. We compete with each other. We need to rationalise that. And so the other piece of advice to charities, think who you should merge with. If they're doing the same job, do you really need 2 boards, 2 infrastructures, 2 everything, and start to actually, let's husband the resources.
And look, and the funders, from a funding perspective, the funders are looking at that sort of thing, right? So if you're a charity and you make an application and you've not got a point of difference from somebody else, then there's a lot of the funders are actually saying, you guys need to hold hands. And so that's is being led, but it is dire out there, and that's certainly the conversations we're having around. But interest rates are going the other way. Things will improve as far as funding's concerned, and arguably the government will balance the books better at some point. But it's a case of getting us all through there. And this is, again, sorry to bring it back to the whole 4-day week, but if we've all got time to be there for each other, then the community starts to take care of the need, and then the charities are left with the specialist stuff. So, and if we all had time to donate to charities, one of the things, New Zealand's always very high up with generosity, and one of the large reasons for that is we're very good donators of time. or we were.
We were.
And so it's actually, and what you get, one of the things that we require with the people who are doing the reduced hours working at Perpetual Guardian, because you can't make it mandatory, is that if you are doing it, that we have to accrue leave on the time that you have off. That's the way the law works.
Yeah.
And so we actually ask, so you get 4 days of leave that accrues for days that you've actually already had off.
Yeah.
So what we ask people to do is that they do 4 days for a charity or a community organisation. And what our people get out of doing that is really quite remarkable. And they'll team up and go and do something meaningful for, and do it together. And so therefore they're getting a sense of purpose from doing that. And one of the things that I often say to employers who have A personality types, who, what do I do with these people who just want to work 70 hours a week? I'm like, tell them to go and do something in the community with that energy. Yeah. Have them be very focused at work, and then challenge them to find a community organisation where they can use all that energy.
Yeah. And they can meaningfully contribute.
And they can make a big difference.
Yeah.
And then the difference in those people when they actually start giving back, and without the fear that their career is going to be affected, and actually then they learn. And if you think about it, if you're reading a CV of someone and they've got all the same, I worked 70 hours, I've done all of this sort of thing, and then you've got, I did this for City Mission or whatever, and I used my skill set to do this particular project for them. That stands out on a CV. That makes you look like the sort of person I want to hire.
Yeah.
So doing work out in the community, it's like we're talking to a friend of ours about his son who's looking for work at the moment, and and his son's doing to put all of the technical stuff about what he's studying and all that. And his father said, "You broke a world record."
It's a good place to start.
Do that, it's actually about what's your point of difference. And for A personality types, often it's about seeing a little bit past that bit.
Yeah. What's your unique value proposition?
Yeah.
Our final question.
Yes.
So each interviewee always asks the next interviewee a question. So this is your question today.
Can you read that out, darling?
Human nature allows us to easily name our weaknesses and things we could do better. Can you now place yourself in the shoes of someone who admires you and tell me the words they would use to describe you? Pain in the neck, probably.
Gosh, Jenny, I have to say, what a question.
Thanks, Jenny.
Yeah, what a question. That's really interesting.
Unreasonable. I don't know. Driven, probably.
Yeah.
I came back to that Ulysses quote. I mean, I think usually I think you probably agree, knowing me better than anybody else, that the one thing I do is when faced with a problem, I can rant and rage.
Yeah.
I really can. I can.
Yeah.
Go
As we
off.
all.
And then go off, come back, and find a solution.
Yeah.
Yes, he has a very, very predictable path when there's a problem.
Yeah.
He rants, he goes silent, and then he comes up with a solution.
Yeah.
And so that's the way that Andrew is. I would suggest that is driven, but darling, I would suggest that actually you're a problem solver. One of the things that I admire most about Andrew, one of the reasons why he's as successful as he is that he doesn't let a problem get in the way of the direction he wants to go. And he has, we often talk about this, his parents are both artists. And so Andrew, being a businessman in banking, kind of saw himself as being so completely different from them. But actually, he has an artistic way of approaching problems. He sees colour where other people see black and white. And so it's that ability to find his way around and not give up when others would. Yeah. So there are times where you just go, oh, I can't fight Auckland Council anymore. Yeah. And Andrew goes, I can.
Yeah. Everything's figure-outable. We'll get there.
Yeah, exactly. I don't know what to say. What do people say about me? I think again they probably see that I'm quite driven, and that it's important to, the purpose is important to me, and that bringing people along on that journey with me is the sort of thing that that I find that draws me into a project. What would you say?
And to incredible levels of detail as well.
Yeah.
Bit about
But I was so nice about you.
I know. But
now the gloves are off.
But actually, and I mean that in the nicest possible way, because I think that I'm very big picture.
He's very spray and walk away, and as a consequence, I am left.
And this is,
so
settling
the crew in.
Charlotte has, I think, the same drive that I do, but she has an incredible ability to, pull the bits together.
Yeah.
I am, I'll daub the canvas.
Yeah.
Charlotte will fill in the colours. Yeah. Okay, and I think that's her great strength. But actually,
that's what makes us a great partnership.
But and also does it with, far more humanity in a way than I think. She does really concern herself with what people think and how we bring them on the journey. And only occasionally has the subtlety of a 6-inch shell.
Yes, every now and then I say what I mean, and people go, okay, but sometimes you can't beat around. It was quite funny actually. We were in a meeting. I was in a meeting with someone that does admire me as well the other day, and knowing that there was going to be an ask for some money, and we went to the meeting knowing that there wasn't going to be, but we wanted to be part of what might be some solutions, and so anyway, I sort of went in and we the conversation's fluffing around. As it does. It's fluffs and we kind of get to that point, and then it sort of got to this point, and I just went straight with, there's no money. Yeah. And she's like, wow, she said to me afterwards, you handled that so well. And I'm like, well, I just said the truth. And she said, yeah, but because she quite often works on the receiving end for funding and things. She said the way people string us along is the hardest thing. Sometimes it's just easy to know that there's just no money. But having said that, one of the great things about the way that Andrew works is that we've got this pathway with this particular organisation that there isn't any money, but based on the conversation that I have with them, Andrew goes, oh, actually, well, hold on, there might be a pathway. So that it's, I think sometimes I think one of the things that people would say about us is that we do work really well as a team, and that our success is something that we do together. And I think we're very much seen as a partnership.
That's right. I mean, we are, when one of us is down, the other one is able to handle that in a way, which reflects the differences in our character, I think.
Yes, absolutely. Really. Absolutely.
So, I haven't killed it yet.
You heard it here first.
Just from sitting here with the two of you today, I also feel like empathy is probably one of those strengths for both of you. You spoke about humanity, but just listening to the two of you and the stories you can tell of how lives have changed. Like there's one thing to talk about a 4-day week, and that's really good, but you know the examples and you care about the humans that are behind it. So that's it's great, and you only have to go onto social media or something like LinkedIn and type in 4-day week and see the stories that people have. And there was one woman who had always wanted to have a dog, but working 5 days a week, she just didn't realise. And then so when her employer went to 4 days a week, she's like, I can get a dog. Okay. Now it's for those dog lovers around the room, there's kind of like, wow, that's impactful for someone to be able to have that little life change. And so I think, yes, it is the impact that you can have that makes it worth it. If
those stories didn't exist, and it was just about, this is a great way to make your company more productive, where you started. It wouldn't be nearly as fulfilling. It really would be and it probably wouldn't be as successful.
And we wouldn't have done it, to be brutally honest.
No.
We wouldn't have done it. It comes back to the ability to make the world a better place. And if it hadn't made the world a better place, I'm not that interested in making this company or that company a more profitable company. Go to McKinsey's, they'll do it.
Yeah.
This is a different...
Life's too short.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, pay us what you pay McKinsey, that'd be good.
Well, thank you both so much for your time today. And I know there's so many impactful things within this kōrero that is going to help people to make change and start conversations. So I'm very, very grateful to you both. And we will see you again next time. Ka kite.